to visit some countries in Africa, most especially Nigeria. And after Nigeria, he's going to be visiting Abidjan. And that visit to Nigeria and Abidjan has already ended. Now we go to the last phase of this visit. The U.S. envoy that has already been sent by Donald Trump, according to the information, they said it was specifically sent by Donald Trump to go on this mission. So the meeting starts today and it's going to be ending on the 17th, which is the last phase of the tour to Africa to represent the U.S. interests. Now, the man at the heart of this conversation is no other person than Fran Garcia. Now, Fran Garcia is the newly confirmed U.S. Assistant Secretary for African Affairs, the Donald Trump administration top diplomat for the continent of Africa. This is his first official visit to Africa since taking office as the head of State Department for Bureau of African Affairs. Now, this position had, previously was occupied by the man known as Nick Shecker. Now, most of the individuals that occupy this position, they always have some sort of intelligence experience. Either they are from the CIA or they are retired award-winning, United States officials, in my opinion. Now, but that is not the conversation for today. The big conversation is why was he sent to Mali? Okay. First of all, part of the discussion they had in Nigeria, which is going to be part of the bargaining chip in their conversation when it comes to the United States repositioning themselves in the Sahel, is going to be the neutralization of the number two command of ISWAP all over the world. They call him Al Minuki. So, according to the conversation that Frank Garcia had with the Nigerian, chief for the DSS, for the NSA, that's Nur Ribadu. So it's a big collaboration between the United States and Nigeria to have been able to neutralize Al Minuki. And according to information, they said the United States and Nigerian security collaboration has led to the neutralization of more than 200 insurgent fighters. Thank you for joining. So this is going to be part of the conversation that they are going to be throwing up there to Bamako. So they are going to use this as a sort of bargaining chip that, the 200 enemy fighters that have been neutralized in Nigeria is a sort of joint security partnership success. So according to the information we're given, they were going to be making this proposal to Bamako that Nigeria, Abidjan and Bamako could have a sort of, tag team right there when it comes to security cooperation. And the United States is going to be at the heart of that security cooperation. Don't forget that the United States, they lost their drone base in Agadez. So according to the information we have right now, they might be running some intelligence gathering and reconnaissance operation from Ivory Coast. So they want to have a security cooperation with Mali so that from Ivory Coast to Mali, then down to the entire Sahel region, they might be able to project their intelligence assets. But first of all, let's talk about the three layers of mission that Frank Garcia has been sent to Bamako to talk about. So, according to information, the main objective of the United States in this visit is to rebuild the strained relationship between the United States and the AES. Given the fact that, according to some sources, the United States was at the heart of the entire pressure that was mounted on the Sahel after Niger told them to leave the drone base in Agadez. Now, according to information, Abdoulaye Diop, who happens to be the Malian foreign minister, is going to have conversation with Washington. And according to the information we have, they said a pre-talk call between the Malian foreign minister and Frank Garcia, they said Abdoulaye Diop described it as productive. I want you to remember that word, productive. So, according to information, they said this signals Washington wants to keep diplomatic channel open rather than isolate the entire AES. So, the question I'm going to ask the people that are counted, that are banking on that word productive. Okay, wait, I can talk to you right now. So, if you receive the message I'm sending to you and you give me your own opinion, which is your own, right to give me your opinion about any conversation, we can call it productive conversation. Anytime we come to this live stream and I tell you about certain things, and it kind of awaken your mind towards unraveling certain information or certain secrets, then you can be like, man, that was a productive live stream. So because I have a phone call with someone does not mean that I have already said yes to. So productive is not a yes sir. All right. So, but that said, the United States is, trying to rebuild their fractured, extremely fractured relationship with the Sahel. Kind of, I won't say the relationship has been seriously fractured with recent developments. When you look at the U.S. Cooperation with Niger Republic, according to information, that was what they call it. Now, according to information, the second would be to counter Russian influence and Chinese influence in the Sahel. First of all, the U.S. is, they are talking about having economic cooperation on so many levels with the Sahel. When they're talking to Mali, they're talking to the entire Sahel. It doesn't matter who they visit. It might be Niger, it might be Burkina Faso, it might be Mali. So they are saying that they are willing to offer Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger on so many levels economic cooperation. So let me break this down to you so that you understand. So when the U.S. stand in front of you by sending their Secretary of State for African Affairs, the U.S. represent the entire Western Alliance. This is it. So the U.S. visiting Mali right now and making this proposal that we are willing to have some sort of bilateral cooperation on every level as far as economy is concerned. This is like the Western Alliance telling Mali, look, we are ready to remove the blockades. ECOWAS is ready to fall back in place. African Union is ready to fall back in place. Everybody, you are about to bypass every protocol in the book because that is what the United States represents. When you talk about the West, it doesn't get better than the United States. So when you look at this meeting, that is what it represents. It has nothing to, this meeting has nothing to do with maybe France or no. When the United States show up, the entire West show up. So this is the United States. And when you have agreements with the United States, let me just explain to you a little bit further so that you understand. You might not want to have some type of agreement when you have agreements with the United States. Remember that the United States told Nigeria that Nigeria should be very careful with the relationship they have with China when it comes to economy. Given the fact that they got intelligence, they said it was verified intelligence that the Chinese, they were paying armed group to secure their artisanal mining project in northern Nigeria, and most especially the middle belt and part of Nigeria, Nasarawa to be specific. Are they right on this particular information? Yes, a lot of Chinese individuals have been arrested in the northern part of Nigeria when it comes to illegal mining and all of that. But what I don't know, and I can't independently verify, is if those Chinese individuals have been giving weapons to those armed groups to displace a lot of people. But the fact is that the Chinese have been arrested, on a whole different scale when it comes to illegal mining in Nigeria. So the United States is saying they are ready to offer the Alliance of Sahel a sort of parallel economic network. Let me explain to you. So the projection is The AES currently rely 100%, all right, on China for products that they might need. And when you look at the way the Chinese economy is a manufacturing economy. China produce almost everything. A lot of people call it unfair trade. A lot of people say China is a trade bully. So everything that the Alliance of Sahel States might be relying on the West, most especially France, to get before. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years, after the diplomatic rupture between the AES states and some of its ECOWAS brother and extensively the entire Western Alliance, it created a sense of panic. But after a long time, they discovered that the sort of encirclement, the sort of diplomatic blockade they were trying to create gave China the opportunity to explore the flaws of the West right there. So China took the opportunity to further build on their Belt and Road Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand this. The West, their diplomatic miscalculation in the Sahel gave China the opportunity to completely take over the economic activity around this region. If they want anything, the Chinese are ready to give it to them at probably sometimes a cheaper price, and you almost will get the same product. So the United States is saying, all right, that is not the issue, okay? You don't have to rely exclusively on Chinese products. We can give you another, don't just rely on this product. We can give you an alternative. So it should not be just one, where sometimes they might dump some of their products that are not really cool to you because they know you have no option than to buy. So you should have another competition alongside that can really, really compete favorably on the international scale with the Chinese products. So then you have your opportunity to choose which of the market you want to go with. So this is what the United States is proposing to the AES. Now, that said, these are part of the reason why Abdoulaye Diop said the conversation was productive. And that is what I'm breaking down to you right now. Now, on the other side, I'm coming from the good side. We're about to get to the bad side. And you are going to be the ones to decide, not me. My position is to give you the report exclusively on what this meeting is all about. So you will decide if this is a collaboration that is worth entertaining. So after the economic conversation, they talked about, when I talk about on all levels, it's going to be a win-win partnership. So if it has to be a win-win partnership, it means that the AES is going to offer what they have. And what does the AES have? They have some superpower mineral resources. They have rare earth minerals in abundance. Families, let me tell you something. Every rare earth mineral you have in northern Nigeria, you have abundant of that rare earth mineral in the Sahel. Because northern Nigeria is an extension, all right, of southern Niger Republic and southeastern Burkina Faso. So whatever mineral resources you can get in northern Nigeria, I guarantee you can get absolutely. I believe a lot of people are aware that you have gold in Niger Republic, you have uranium in Niger Republic, you have an absolutely unbelievable amount of oil in Niger Republic. And now they are having so many collaborations with Algeria and with so many international partners, even with China. Now that said, all right, yeah, I saw the video of how the Chinese, they have been behaving. But I just want you to understand, some of these Chinese individuals that have abused the opportunity they have to relate with Africans, I just want you to know that they don't represent the interests of the Chinese authority. I don't represent the image of Nigeria completely. You can't look at me and say, oh, I will judge Nigeria entirely because of Andrade. No, you cannot judge Nigeria. You will see some Nigerians, you will react a certain way. You will see some, you know, Nigerians, you will have a different opinion. So that is how it is. You will see some Americans, you will feel a certain way about Americans. You will see some Nigerians, you will see some Americans that you feel a different way. So it exists in every society. You don't judge a book just because you saw the cover. And just because you read the first page, it does not mean the entire book as is the representation of what you saw on the first page. So now, that said, the United States will be willing to have a collaboration with the Alliance of Sahel when it comes to mining cooperation and all of that. So, with mining, that means the ExxonMobils and all of that, they will want to collaborate. Now, when it comes to Mali, the type of mining collaboration they want to have is lithium and gold, which Mali has in abundance. So, but that said, it will be down to when they have the one-on-one conversation and what the Malian authority would have, what their unanimous decision will be. It will be in the interest of the Malian people. Now, one thing we do know is that Mali needs a lot of development. A lot of development is still needed in Mali. Bamako is the cream of the crop. Like, Bamako is extremely developed. Let's not deceive her. Whatever you've been hearing on any type of media is a lie. Bamako is extremely developed. But, I believe that Mali needs a lot more development, all right? Mali can still... Development has no limit. If you go to China, then you know that development has no limit. So I think Mali still needs all the development they can get. But then we are going to get to some part of this conversation where you are going to decide if this is the type of collaboration you want or this is not the type of collaboration you want. Now, after talking about the economic collaboration on all levels, and having economic collaboration will further remove some type of sanctions that Mali has had for a while. But there is one coincidence that I want to bring to your notice. Now, I'm not targeting, I am not alleging, all right, because there is no verifiable fact to this. But is it not coincidental that after this recent attack in Mali, I think they need to change the timing of their visitation. I am not saying, I said I'm not alleging. So is it a coincidence that we saw Rudy Atala after a very huge attack? So why is it that after every, huge attack, we always see some sort of security proposals and all of that? But, what time would it be best for you to propose a security offer or a deal to an individual better than when they're having issues, right? So they also propose security to Mali. So they are saying that they can help Mali when it comes to intelligence gathering, collaboration with the Ivorians, when it comes to joint security. And they're talking about the United States helping with reconnaissance and all of that. Now, this is where the problem comes in. Now, if you look at the headline on most of the Western media, the conversation is that Washington is trying to rival Russia and China. All right? Now, that's the conversation. And I will tell you why that is the conversation. Because the question we should ask ourselves is, U.S. is offering... Oh, Rashford, welcome. U.S. is offering collaboration when it comes to intelligence gathering, reconnaissance operation, counterinsurgency. Now, the billion-dollar question is, does Mali have somebody that ticks every of that box? Yes, they have the Russians. All right? When they want to get drones, now, the U.S. have their own version, which is the MQ Reaper drones and other type of drones like that. When it comes to drone warfare, does Mali have a partner that they can, dependably rely on? Yes, they have Turkey. And apart from Turkey, they have Russia. And apart from Russia, they have China. So if they want to cross over from the Baraktia Akinci and they want to go to, let's say the Orion Kronstadt, or they want to go to some Chinese version of heavy drones, they can get all this. So now, if the United States is making the same proposal that Mali already has in the choice of our own security partner, that is a competition right there. That is that is a statement that it simply means that the United States has not accepted that, okay, you are with China, you are with Russia, and that's okay. No, the United States is not ready to give up their influence in the Sahel just to China and Russia. All right. The US is saying, even if you're collaborating with these people, we believe that we still have enough to offer you that they are not offering you. Now, the question is, if there is anything the United States can offer that Russia has not already offered, we have to look at some of the security partners of the United States. How are they doing? How are they faring? Recently, the United States said that their mission in Nigeria is completed, and now it will be limited to intelligence gathering, and they have now removed their troops. But it says some instructors, some trainers will still be on the ground. And I have a video I will be dropping on my Telegram channel where one of the U.S. Special Forces that was sent to Nigeria was given information about the tactical capability, the should I say the professionalism and like how good the Nigerian, the best in Nigeria, how good they are. He said it in that video. I'm going to be posting it on my Telegram channel. So if you want to see what the United States Special Forces said about Nigerians, the Nigerian SBS, you are going to see it on that Telegram channel after this live stream. Now, the United States now says something, and this is where we need to talk about, right? This is the bone of contention. They talked about migration. All right. So according to the information, now the framing of this migration talk is very, very important. According to information, the official State Department framing for this migration conversation, they call it Keep Americans Safe. Based on the report we are getting, they say it's called Promote Economic Prosperity in the United States. Now, and they said an advanced U.S. interests on the ground. That's in Mali. So now that translates to counterterrorism cooperation and, against Islamic insurgency, spreading south from the Sahel, and potential migration cooperation arrangements. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the most diabolic part of this information. All right. I've listened to the expanding trade and investment ties and all of that. I mean, the conversation was getting competitive. It was getting interesting until the migration conversation entered the frame. Now, if I understand clearly what and they will also offer the same deal to Nigeria and Ivory Coast. I have a belief that Ivory Coast might accept this deal, this migration deal. Ivory Coast might accept, but Abuja has, they've rejected this deal the first time. Are they going to be able to, reject the deal the second time? It's not a free deal. It's coming with a lot of money. So is the current administration in Nigeria going to have enough cojones to reject the deal? Now, all right, this conversation, let me make it very, very clear. So when you hear that America wants to keep America safe and they want to move migrants to your country, let me break it down properly so that a lot of people will understand. So these are not ordinary migrants. When they say migrants, it might be maybe I travel to the US and my documentation is not really right like that, and maybe they're trying to deploy me to another country. No, that's not the conversation. The United States happen to have a reputation for being the global police. I don't know if you've heard that conversation before. So the United States has some of the worst criminals on the planet. Not because they committed a crime in the US, but because they were arrested from different part of the world. You know what I mean? It might be, some of the worst terrorists that if they are in your country, if your security is not up to, you know what I'm saying, you might start having some faces you don't really, really, expect to have in your country. You know, the guys might be coming for their guy. They want to come and free their guy. So it will be down to, is your security legit enough? So they will be making these proposals to Mali. So if you think these migrants that are coming to your country are like ordinary people that want to come and live among you, no. These are criminals that will be in some of your, America will be giving you money. Now that money will be used to build a top level prison in your country. So that would be America wants to shed those criminals out. It's like shedding your weight and redistributing the weight to some people, right? You'll be paying them. I think there is an initial payment, maybe $400 million and all of that. It can be printed. That is the thing. It can be printed. But can you how do you got, man, look, when I saw this situation, I was like, man, this is a very, very serious one, because when you look at Africa as a whole, imagine, moving someone like El Chapo to your country, even though I don't believe that they are going to be, letting go of criminals of that level, but some of these guys that are going to be coming to the country, they are going to be sophisticated level of criminal. And when you have criminals at that level, they are not just going to be in your country and they are not just going to be isolated. These are criminals with great experience. I'm not talking about all this local dirty experience. I'm talking about high level experience. So if they get to your prison, they can easily infiltrate the entire prison system. These are some chronic individuals that can really, really bribe their way, create a network even within your prison. Now, looking at the African, security situation, imagine ISWAP or Boko Haram or JNIM or any of these individuals breaking into that prison and, getting an opportunity to get those type of prisoners on their side. So this is what we are this is what we are talking about. It's a very, very serious conversation. So I don't know. I think, we will see. So they said potentially including arrangement for deportations. So I think that is where they are going to hit the gridlock, with their conversation in Mali. And I don't know if Mali rejects that deal. Mali might reject the deal that we don't want deportees. Now, if they reject the deal, will the U.S. will Mali still want to have any type of cooperation with the United States? We never can tell. Given the fact that the Alliance of Sahel States recently, they just had a cooperation with Algeria. So we never can tell if they can have a security cooperation, a bilateral cooperation, economic cooperation with Algeria. So we never can tell who they might end up having cooperation with. So the US have been doing a lot of things to please the Alliance of Sahel States. Who knows where the next relationship might shift to? So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the information we have. My personal opinion don't matter. I don't decide for the Malian people, all right? Because I might be saying, don't accept the deal. And a common Malian might be saying, we love the deal. So I am not going to be speaking. I know a lot of Malians are here and they always say they love my position on most of the, takes I have, but I'm not going to speak for the Malian people. I want to know my place. I want the Malian people to decide for themselves. They already have Assimi Goita, a very, very intelligent man and a shrewd operator. I believe that Assimi Goita is going to take the best decision for his people. I'm trusting Assimi Goita 100% and I'm banking on him. And like I've always said, Mali has some of the most phenomenal squad of leadership in Africa. Like in Africa. Burkina, like when you look at Africa as a whole, when you talk of leadership, I mean the competence at the leadership level. I have the right to my opinion. I pick Mali. when it comes to Sahel, like from president down to like diplomat, trying to foreign minister, like all of them in that category, I think I really, really have a lot of respect for the Malians when it comes to that. And when it comes to Burkina Faso, those guys are just on a whole nother level. But when it comes to leadership in Africa, I think I'll go for Mali first. And when I talk about leadership, I'm not just talking about the president. I'm talking about the guys that are around that position, the senior, like all those positions, those guys are great. They are intelligent, they are competent, they are up to the task. So I really, really have a lot of respect for those guys. And it is not in my purview to decide for them, but I think Burkina Faso is very, very special. And before this entire conversation, the United States delegation have already had a phone call with the representative of the AES, and they called the conversation productive. And they've already met with Burkinabe foreign delegates in Washington. They met with, what's the name of that? There was a diplomat that's Captain Ibrahim Traore sent to Washington one time like that. General, I've forgotten his name, but he's in the United States. General Kasum Koulibaly. So General Kasum Koulibaly and his delegation, they've already met with, Fran Garcia before he came to the Sahel. So let's see what the conversation would be about. But the only negative I have, all right, with this conversation is why don't you address them as a whole? But maybe, don't just come to Mali, address everybody as the AES, and let's see what's gonna happen. Now the thing is, what I'm going to say about the whole thing, right, is that I believe that the Alliance of Sahel know what they are doing. But for the first time today, we have a very, very beautiful information because the Burkinabe armed forces stomped their boots on the Beninois territory. Ladies and gentlemen, the stomping of boots of the Burkinabe armed forces to the Beninois territory was not for warfare, was not for dispute, was not for enmity and discord. It was for friendship. According to information, they will now be running joint operation along the northern part of Benin Republic. According to the information I even heard, now I've not been able to verify from either official source or from both sides. They said the Beninois, the Burkinabe armed forces, they are going to have a base, a temporary base in a part of northern Benin where they are going to be running joint operation. Ladies and gentlemen, if that happens, Wadagni is the truth, man. Say no more. If that, a lot of people just react certain way. I see people jump into some conclusions and all of that. Then suddenly today, Burkinabe troops and Beninois troops, and Benin Republic forces have been doing exceptionally well recently. A lot of enemies are falling. Like the number of KIA of the enemy they got this week was just exceptional. And one of the terrorists that have been disturbing Benin have just been neutralized by his fellow comrade in the JNIM. That is Al-Assad. The guy that was neutralized for exposing the JNIM and all of that, who said that the JNIM refused to follow their doctrine, but they were negotiating with Patrice Talon. I think Romod Wadagni has chosen a different path. He has collaborated with Nigeria. They've run some, Nigeria and Benin have been running some joint security partnership. And now again, Togo has always been legit. Now Burkina Faso coming from the north of Benin to support what is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a new era in the security architecture of Africa. I don't think that the JNI can survive the pressure that they are going to start getting in northern Benin, given the capability of the Burkinabe force. You have to see the video. The morale was out of this world. And to see Beninois forces and Burkinabe forces working like brothers in arms, loving themselves, and the ruthlessness is still there. This is what we want in Africa. We don't want enmity. We don't want somebody to call somebody. This is just the best time for Africa. Now, there was an attack in Mali. I will be talking about that tomorrow morning. There was an attack in Mali. Not an attack like that. The Malian armed forces wanted to supply a particular locality, and their vehicle ran into a particular, should I call it a murky environment? So The vehicle sank on its own. It was not an IED assault and all of that. So I don't know what happened. So the JNIM took that opportunity. They burnt the vehicles and all of that. But as we speak, we did not see any Malian force being captured against the propaganda that was brought out. So in that video, I would like to show you the video. I would like to explain everything so that you can understand. The Malian armed forces have released a communique through their general staff. They said that there was a lot of TNT that was dropped on the JNIM. They said the JNIM took a lot of casualty. It is very, very believable. But the information of the GNIM looked very, very, very poor because of the terrain, because of the condition of the vehicle, you know. And I can't really say that is a problem for the Malian armed forces. All I would say is that it is high time the Malian armed forces consider bringing in the VDP approach. It is going to work. You know, you can't deploy troops from Bamako to go and supply somewhere in Segu. It's too far. You need VDPs. The main troops can deliver the goods to the VDP, and the VDP already knows their terrain. They will be able to know how to work things out. So I think it's high time the Malians they start considering the approach of the VDP. But ladies and gentlemen, I would like to hold it at this point. It's your boy 7200 signing out and all said. Fargo. I want to thank the family. I want to thank you for your support. I want to thank you for the work you put in on different spheres of life. I really appreciate the work you do. Thank you. I should watch this guy. I watch him. I watch. Let me see that name. I watch him. Nefakar Desalegn. I watch him. Yeah, I watch him. I watch his platform. Do you think I don't have my eyes on most people? I watch a lot of people and I try to see if their game is legit. Nefakar Desalegn is doing a very, very fantastic job. Everything he does is very professional. He has a very, very good game. And, he's doing a very, very fantastic job. And I have nothing against him. He has been solid behind the Sahel. And he's a very good one. Yeah, and everything he does is very credible. You can trust his information. He has a very, very good information. So thank you, family. I'll see you tomorrow. Very early tomorrow, I'll try to break down the situation in Bamako so that you all can see it. Thank you and God bless you.